21 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gates City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Lisa and Robyn are two fun friends diving deep into conversations where nothing is taboo. They believe in eating dessert before dinner and wearing the bikini. They're allergic to labels, authority, and cheap shoes. Currently, they're launching themselves through life being the good time, bold enough to take risks and inquisitively asking, what's next? They hail from New Hampshire, but they could be anywhere dressed in cute clothes. If they had to share a tombstone, it would read, "Curiosity killed these cats." Your hosts, Lisa and Robyn, on the mic.
Welcome to another Thursday at Lisa and Robyn on the mic. You are listening on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live, as well as Facebook and YouTube and Spotify. All the fun places that you catch all of your listening pleasures.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. You sound fantastic.
I don't think I can hear me.
You fantastic, darling. Fantastic.
Hey, I just opened my book this morning, and I'm going to start it out like, wow, that hit home. You bring who you are to everything you do.
Yes, but do we know who we are?
Right.
Are we pretending to be somebody else?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of along the lines of what I was going to read today.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Because we always think about how I don't think we always think about how we're showing up. I don't think and I was like, if you have problems, like, are you part of it?
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you're always having issues with, employees or coworkers or friends or whoever. Just in every relationship, or just even your interactions at the grocery store. And we just blame all these people. And perfect example, this morning, I was driving down Main Street and I was like, oh my gosh, it's empty. All the pylon things are gone. Like all the pylons are gone. And all the highway workers are gone. Like nobody's working on it. I was thinking, I think they intentionally did that. I think they intentionally chose to take the whole summer to work on Main Street. So it would just be a traffic jam. But this UPS was like double parked and this minivan is trying to cut me off, and she like looks back at me and like I actually I hit my horn, and now I'm not a honker. Like I don't unless it's like like
I've been at this light and now it's yellow and you're going to go through and I'm going to hit the
I don't
red.
do it. I don't even do it then. Certain times I don't do it, and I don't like if somebody makes me upset, like I hate listening to horns honking when they're just like, you got to take your rage out somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm usually like, I'll just let it go, whatever. And I tapped my horn at her this morning, and I was like, what? Because she's getting in my lane. Like, hey, you have a problem in your lane. Don't encroach in mine. Mm-hmm. If you can't get over it, slow down. Mm-hmm. Just slow down. And she's just looking at me, and I was growling, and I hit my horn. But also, guess what? I was in that place. I was showing up as an ugly person, so I had an ugly experience.
I had an ugly moment.
Ugly.
I think that's part of why we're afraid to show our real selves, is we all know we have ugly inside of us.
Yes.
And I think we're always trying to pretend it doesn't exist. There's no ugly in me. It must be you're ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You so ugly.
You're so ugly. Fugly.
And so I think we, it's Sober October still. I don't know how everyone's doing, if anyone took it on as something to try or if they didn't. But there is a fantastic podcast called Unhammered. And I bring it up because I heard the first episode several months ago.
I think you sent it to me.
I did, because I really liked it, because it was someone who had struggled with a professional hockey player who like dominated the league as a tough guy, had a massive drinking and drug problem. I think mostly drugs, but a drinking problem too. And he's the only person to be permanently banned from the National Hockey League. And so he talks about, his practice of being sober, and he interviews other people, and because he's a famous person, he knows other famous people, and so there's famous people, actors and rock stars and various people talking about how they had to get their act together, and it's just best for them to be sober. And he was talking about fears and phobias the other day, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good point to bring up, because I think naturally fear is a huge motivator, rightfully so.
Yes.
If you see someone or something charging at you and you're supposed to move out of the way, you need to have that fear. That fear, dumps the adrenaline, which either is going to make you fight or flight or freeze. Yep. Which is one too. Sometimes that's not always the best response. Sometimes it is. Yeah. But that is a visceral response. And if we have a nervous system that out of habit, out of bad experiences, people go to war and, live in war zones. It
literally changes the chemistry in your brain and your body.
In your body. So you can be there naturally and habitually when even it's not time to be there.
Yes.
So I thought that was really interesting. And I thought, isn't that a perfect reason to drink and do drugs, is so you don't have to feel that?
They do. That's why they say, I think we were talking about it a little bit. You literally numb out your brain. But what happens is, it releases, serotonin? It activates our brain's reward system.
So the dopamine, serotonin, all of that good stuff.
That it mediates the pleasure and reduces brain activity in negative emotional stress states. Stress, anxiety, emotional pain.
Because that you still have the same problem, you just don't care.
Right. But at some point, but your body gets used to it, and then you need to do more and more because you're not, you drink more or you do more because
your body habituates to it.
Yes. And then it's like, then we don't naturally know how to do it. Our body doesn't naturally know how to do it because now it's depending on this thing
that our bodies become actually addicted to.
Yeah.
If we know that we can just reach for this and be better, our brain is always going to tell us to reach for that.
Yeah. So you're actually not living in present when you're actually, it's almost like you're just waiting for that moment to be activated.
Yeah.
So you carry your anger, you carry your fear, you carry your anxiety and all of these things, and it's just like under the surface. I think that's why we have a lot of road rage and like just nasty human beings.
Yeah. And I think there's so many reasons to be fearful in our world. I'm apparently not allowed to watch YouTube anymore because there is nothing but political ads on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And just actually one party's political ads for the most part. I mean, Kelly Ayotte is on there every single time I turn on YouTube. So it's people who hate Kelly Ayotte and then her coming on to say that they're lying. And then they're all Harris ads. And I thought, who are all the advertisers that prop up with paid advertising all of YouTube now that none of them are paying? Are they still paying while they're not because since it's been maybe 3 weeks.
Are the candidates paying?
Yeah, the candidates pay, but where is my progressive ads? You know what ad? I can't remember who does the ad, but it's when you turn into your parents, there's the therapist who, when you buy a home and get insurance.
That's progressive, isn't it?
Is it progressive?
I think, or it's, yeah, progressive.
Yeah, I love when he's explaining to them, no one's going to talk about the lawn. And if someone starts talking about the lawn, I'll come in and rescue you.
Yes,
because I'm going to keep these people from turning into their parents. Like, I loved those ads.
Yes,
I wouldn't even fast forward those ads.
Yes.
But where are all those ads? It's just political ads now. So I'm not watching it. I've got the the DVD player hooked back up.
Hey, nice.
Because I'm not doing it.
So here's my rant.
And I want to know if everyone's still paying for YouTube's ads. Are you still being charged? Because they're not playing you anymore.
It's true.
You could come to
take a hiatus.
Lisa and Robyn on the mic, and for the next 2 months or for the next 5 weeks or whatever until those ads still play, you can come and advertise with us.
Yes, we'll do it. We'll do it. Yeah. So one of the things is, and not to say I don't want to talk about politics or anything, but one thing that got under my, we're talking about that low level rage or that anger that comes, I think I said it last time. I was out leaf blowing in our yard and I was taking out some weeds, And this guy parks, and he's soliciting everybody in the neighborhood. Now, we have 3 houses in our neighborhood, 6 if you count the little dirt road. And I just was like, I'm ignoring him. He's watching me. And I'm like, don't you stop, don't you stop. So the other morning, I go outside on my front porch, and I stepped on something right on the threshold. So I look down, because it's still kind of dark. You know, it's 4 o'clock, 4:50 in the morning.
And I'm not sleeping.
And I see the sun starting to come up over the, just seeing it start to get light. So I'm just sitting out there and just watching the morning wake up. So I step down, and there are 8 flyers from Democratic parties laying on my front door. And I'm like, that's trash.
Yeah, put
It's
it in my
trash.
mailbox. I have a mailbox, dude.
But don't even put it in my mailbox.
I know, but that's where mail goes. But maybe they're not allowed because it doesn't have a stamp.
It
so they're just
might.
littering your
But
front
I'm like,
stairs.
how would you feel? Just randomly, I'm like, I'm gonna go put 8 pieces of and you paid for all that stuff. It went right in the trash. I looked through it and I was like, yeah, this is all. Do not solicit me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm gonna put that. I'm like, where do I put it? Do I write it on the mailbox? Do I
They
paint
do
it?
have no solicitation signs.
Do I put it on the sign? But it's just like, when did you do that?
Mm.
Because it wasn't out there in the evening. So, because we sit out there a lot of times and watch the turkeys take roost. So that's like 6:30, 7 o'clock. So between 7 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning, you came to my front door and left all these flyers. I just think it's rude. It'd be like me just going and put my old newspapers on their front porch.
You know what I was thinking? I wonder how much money they spend on campaigning.
Yeah.
And it's millions and millions of dollars. And I wonder if that could go to anything useful.
Yeah, but you spend money on smear,
That's what I mean.
I see the one that says,
You know the ads that I love when they go, I feel that they would do this.
yeah.
But, well, that's your feelings. I feel all kinds of things. No one's.
Right.
We don't vote on my feelings. Do we? Do we vote on feelings now? I'm
Apparently
feeling
we do.
sad. I'm feeling sad today. I'm going to vote differently today because I'm sad. Like, what are you talking about? I feel, not that this candidate is
But
even
I do
doing
think
this.
I do think the lot, but all the politics and all that stuff. The reason people are getting so ramped up is because they are in their feelings. They're not making. I don't feel like they're making educated decisions. You can be passionate about it, but look at old, store rage man down the street.
Yeah, we had him shaking.
He was emotional. I mean, they are emotionally voting.
Yes.
You're not separate your facts from your feelings.
And I think that's why our country's our country's in a right old bloody mess for a number of reasons, but not learning the facts. And I don't know, maybe in our lifetime it's always been just smear campaigns. And I think a lot of those politicians have a lot to worry about. I think it's very easy to blackmail a politician.
Yeah.
Because they're all up to something shady. They're
Yeah.
all taking money from groups they're not supposed to take.
Yep.
You're supposed to make $78,000 a year. How do you have 3 homes
Right.
that are over $1 million? You
And
just
you fly
invest
private?
wisely
Yeah.
all of the time. You've never had a losing investment.
Right.
Aren't you so special? What makes you so special? Oh, I
Right.
have all the insider information. That's how it makes me special. Or I go back and forth to the FDA. They pay me to pass a drug when I come back. That's a real thing.
Right.
And they're all shady. So
Yes.
it's so easy to blackmail a politician.
Yes.
Because they're just.
But I also think they're
up to no
eager to
good.
have the money. So yeah, I'll do what you want.
So yeah,
Right.
it's depressing. So I can't even watch YouTube, which is something I normally love to watch,
Yeah.
but I cannot watch it at the moment. But I want to say one thing, Lisa and Robyn have so few official subscribers that we don't register on the ads.
Hey, that's awesome.
So there are no ads that play for us.
All the more reason. All the more reason to listen to us on YouTube.
And
Just put it on, forget about it. But you could also subscribe and help our numbers get up
yeah,
there.
yeah, you should subscribe. Actually, it costs you nothing.
Yes.
It costs you nothing.
Just hit that subscribe button. So if we get what's our number? If we get 500 subscribers, we can go live on YouTube.
Well, we are live on YouTube.
I forgot there was some kind of a catch.
They don't push us up on the algorithm. When we hit a certain number, then it'll start pushing us
Oh, yeah,
out
gotcha.
to
Yes.
non-subscribers.
Yes.
Right now, you will only know about us if you look us up by
Yes.
typing in Lisa and Robyn on the mic.
Yes.
Or you subscribe. Then Other than that,
And
we're
then
just
it'll
like
come up
in the oblivion.
in the abyss.
Not like here where we're played on the buses or doing whatever we're doing here in the city on the YouTubes.
I hope they don't play
on
us
the
in the city
socials.
jail.
Who knows? It's okay. They can.
Well, they might come after us.
We're not saying anything bad about them.
Hey, if your pet could talk, what would his voice sound like?
Oh, my pet does talk.
I know, but like if you had human, like he had a human talk.
He would have a very raspy voice.
See, I think Milo would be like an Italian dude.
He would have an accent a little
what's
bit.
Just, kind of Guido-ish, like,
Yeah.
hey, like a
Oh
sweet
my
talker.
God. You know who-
Stella, I think, would be a New York ghetto princess. Sassy.
She'd be very sassy.
A little sassy with a little bit of like a city twang, city
Yeah.
accent.
Yeah. I catch Bosco on the stairs, and we have a 2-story foyer. So when he sits in this one spot and he bounces his voice off, because I catch him, I come around the corner and he turns around and looks at me and does a completely different cry. Like he does the cry of the holler. Like,
He's like, oh, you caught
she's
me.
ignoring me. Let me see if this one brings her. And then when I come over, he's like, oh.
Hey, that would work.
Oh, no, I'll keep that one in my pocket for later.
Yes, Milo practices all these different, like tiny, and then he gets long, and sometimes I'll just meow right back at him, and like, are you gonna do it? And he'll look at me, and then he goes, meow, meow.
Yeah, once they have the attention, they don't have to do that whole. Because Bosco will holler. Like he's hollering
Yes.
at me.
Yes. Milo does that.
That's a full blown holler.
Stella just squeaks at you.
Yeah, I've never heard her holler.
Mm-mm. I was outside yesterday. I was talking to my daughter on the phone, and Milo was right at the door. He's looking at the window, staring at me like, I know you want to come get me. And she's like, is that him crying? And I said, yes, and he's inside. She's like, he is loud. I'm like, Jesus. We had a chocolate lab, and his name was Bosco. And we always said if he could talk, he would sound like Eeyore. This is fun. Okay. I guess you can pet me. All right. It's time to go to bed. He's such a sweetheart, but he so
But he didn't have a lot of emphasis
Yeah.
to his voice. That's awesome.
It's just his personality. He's like, whatever.
So I started reading Living in Uncertainty. So I'm trying to get through this 3-week period where I have no information about possible bad news.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And so sitting where
Good to get through life that way.
one of the things that I like to do is I like to take action. When there's a problem, I want to take action. So just having to sit and wait for an unlimited amount of time, I am crawling the walls, right? So I bring out Pema Chopra. I think it's Pema Chopra. I think that's how I say her name, Chopra. She has a book called Living with Uncertainty, which is all of life. Like you
Yes.
really don't know what the future
Right.
brings. You just tell yourself you know what the future brings. So that's that book. I read my underlying things and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. And then so I took out this book, which was The Art of Living, a classical manual on virtue, happiness, and effectiveness. And so they're little. You can read one a day, and it's the Stoics, and it's a slave who talks about freedom. Like no one can harm you. You only allow yourself to be harmed. And so there's a couple. But this one I thought was very interesting because it asks questions. And you know how I feel about asking better questions. I don't want anyone giving me the answer because we all have our own answers inside.
Yes.
So that's part of why, we hate advice because it needs to come from within. So that's sometimes we joke that we tell someone to do something and they don't do it, and then 3 weeks later they act like it was their idea.
Yes.
We all do that to some extent.
Yes.
Because we want to know, we feel it. And sometimes when we're talking to people and asking for advice, we really don't want advice.
Yes.
What we're looking for is a sounding board so I can hear what it sounds like back to me
Yes.
externally.
Yes. And I think like
This would be a perfect example. I hate so-and-so. Should I go trash his car? Okay, when you say that out loud, like in your head, you're like,
Yes.
yeah, go trash the car, or something. Take a baseball bat. I've got golf clubs. Like I'm thinking of
Internal filter.
right. But when you say that outside, you go, no, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Like, that's probably not going to,
You were going to get arrested.
Yes.
He's got insurance. This whole thing is not going to be a thing. So you try,
Yes.
Who were not the Spice Girls? Who sang Salt and Pepper?
Salt and
Salt and Pepper.
I think that was a trick question.
You passed. So
I thought you said you didn't want the answer.
I wanted to hear myself say it.
Wait, I wanted to come to it myself. See, I think that's why you and I get along, because we are both verbal processors.
Yes.
Like, sometimes I say something out loud. Like, I texted you on my way home from Salem, and then I called you and I was like, "Wait, delete that. that was a bad idea." Me saying it out loud, like, no, erase.
The minute I'm saying, I'm like, don't do this. When I'm saying right now, just don't do this.
Don't listen to me. You were my sounding board there for a minute.
You are my compass. That's what I always say. You are my compass.
That's true. But I also think sometimes we reject it. Sometimes we reject it because 3 weeks later, it needs to be our idea, or the reason why it needs to be our idea. I think that could actually be a good thing, because if it's showing that we're open to look at something differently. And sometimes it takes people longer for them to come to the conclusion.
Or they've been through 3, they don't like the answer. So they're like, okay, that's not going to work. Let me try 3 other answers. And then when those 3 answers don't work, that one seems way more reasonable.
I'm going to go down these dirt bumpy roads because you might have given me a smooth one, a paved road.
But I don't see that it's paved. I see that there's a moose in the middle of it, and I don't want to hit a moose. I already have enough problems.
And you're already bad at directions, so I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah, when was the last time you got us anywhere without being a GPS?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not listening.
Okay, so what do you have to read for us?
Okay. I'm going to do my best. I've got my glasses. I got my glasses.
All right, read the name of the book again.
It is The Art of Living, the Classical Manual on Virtue, Happiness, and Effectiveness by Epictetus.
Epictetus.
And it's a new interpretation. So she is either dead on or a little bit off. I always think of that of interpretations. What do we know what they say? Was it Roman?
That's kind of like me.
A Roman or something. Cultivate the habit of surveying and testing a prospective action before undertaking it. Before you proceed, step back and look at the big picture, lest you act rashly on raw impulse. Determine what happens first, consider what that leads to, and then act in accordance with what you have learned. When we act without circumspection, we might begin a task with great enthusiasm. Then, when unforeseen or unwanted consequences follow, we shamefully retreat and fill with regret. I would have done this, I could have done that, I should have done it differently. Suppose you wanted to be victorious at the Olympic Games. That's fine, but fully consider what you're getting yourself into. What does such desire entail? What needs to happen first? Then what? Then what? What will be required of you? What follows from that? Is this whole course of action really beneficial? If so, carry on. So those sets of questions. So, for example, you want to undertake a new endeavor or a new business or a new project. Starting stuff is very exciting.
Yes.
Right?
And scary, too.
Yep. But some of us are great starters. ADHD people are unbelievable starters. ADD, you know why? Because we don't want to do the thing we're supposed to be doing, so we're finding a new thing to do.
Yes.
But do we need to undertake this new thing? Do we understand what is required of us? And Mark Manson, who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep, there's more to it, but I just wanted to stop here for a second. He talks about he loves music, but he didn't like practicing for 8 hours a day. He liked playing when he played.
Yeah.
But he didn't like the work that was required to undertake this thing. So if he just thinks or desires to be a musician, but he doesn't have the desire to practice, it really is the wrong desire.
Right. It's something that you have fun with.
So you have to, and I think back to flying. If I wasn't going to be a person getting paid to do it, at some point I had to allocate money differently towards going to it. It's one thing if it's a goal that is going to take me to a place that I am now being paid to do this. But once I wasn't that, it was doing it for fun.
Right.
it had the desire factor. I'm going to do this for a living versus I'm going to do this to have a good time.
But you still had the desire. It just changed. The outcome changed.
Yes.
Like you still have flying in your life and you still pilot, but you gave up saying, okay, so maybe my passion wasn't, my desire to get paid for it was not as great.
Right. But for a while there, I was trying to figure out where I could do that. And it's like, well, what would be the work required? It was partly financially, I couldn't afford to do it.
Yeah.
Unless I went into the military, which I actually entertained going into the Air Force for a while.
Wow.
Because I thought, well, they'll pay for me to fly.
Yeah.
But just because I'm going in as a pilot doesn't mean the Air Force is going to think I'm good. That might not be my assigned role.
Right.
So I'm like, do I want to go in the Air Force if I'm not going to be a pilot when I come out of it? Through all my ratings.
That's true.
And the answer was no. And a very smart man, Bill Gillette, wherever you are in the world, thank you so much. You talked me out of going into that, because that would have probably been a really bad decision, because I wasn't willing to do it. I didn't want to be in the military. I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to live a specific lifestyle every day.
My way.
I wanted free flying lessons.
Yes.
That was a different trade, right? That
I'm an Air Force One pilot because I just wanted to get paid to fly.
That's not how that works.
I wanted to fly for free. I didn't want to fight.
So back to our consider what comes first, then what follows, then act. If you wish to win the Olympic Games, to prepare yourself properly, you would have to follow a strict regimen that stretches you to the limits of your endurance. You would have to be able to submit to demanding rules, follow a suitable diet, vigorously exercise at a regular time in both hot and cold, give up drinking. You would need to follow the directions of your trainer as if they were your doctor. Then, once you're actually competent, there's a good chance you could be hurled into a ditch, break your arm, sprain your ankle, get your face slammed in the mud, and after going through all this, you're still going to be defeated. After you have contemplated all of the possibilities, and you're mindful of all the things that might happen and their consequences, and if your resolve is still strong, then exercise your judgment. If the overall picture still seems beneficial, then do it, but do it wholeheartedly.
I think it's how you should do everything.
Right. But how many times do we do things wholeheartedly? I may be at 7%.
I don't think we commit to anything. I don't think we come right out of the gate. I mean, pregnancy. I mean,
that's an all in.
You got to be all in on that one. Like, okay. Well, damn, I didn't expect to get pregnant. Well, what did you think was going to happen? You were trying. Anyway, but I think that we are curious.
But can I back up 1 second about
Yes.
the pregnancy? So do we really, I think women think about this all the time. If I have sex, there's a chance I'm getting pregnant.
Yes.
And I don't think men go into sex saying, if I have sex, I might get this girl pregnant. Because the action would be completely different.
Yes.
Because you're going to yoke your, and then a lot of times the answer to a guy who finds out that he's getting someone pregnant is, well, we can just eliminate this.
Right.
Because my intention for having sex was not having a baby.
Right. I was just doing that for fun.
I was just doing that for fun.
And
So I think to take this, just to take this towards casual sex.
Yeah.
Right? You're not in a committed relationship. You know, you're not wanting to be with this person for a very long period of time. You don't, either A, you have to have really great birth control, right? And not be taking Ozempic, since that ruins the oral birth control. Or you have to think about what you're getting yourself into. There are so many different outcomes of this activity. But that was really kind of a good point about the pregnancy piece.
Well, I mean, because I think that we're curious. And I think when we put ourselves out there and are open to new ideas, new experiences, flying or, skydiving or quitting your job and becoming like, I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to be an entrepreneur, or I'm going to go do this. There are some things that you have to commit to, but we don't know that we don't know enough about it to be all in. You know what I mean?
And
I think
are you going to be
saying it wrong? I feel like the determination comes a little bit later after going down that road. Once you've made the decision.
See, I think deciding has to happen at the beginning, or the minute things get hard, you give up.
Well, yeah. Maybe I'm explaining it wrong because I think about this. Like I think about the opportunity for us, even in the radio station.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't to say like when you invited me on to be a guest, and then the first time we did our first show together. I guess I wasn't consciously aware of it being all in. I was just like, hey, this feels good. This feels right. So I kept going to that until it cemented in my body of saying, yeah, this is the right thing. I'm all in.
See, and I came to it the opposite. That if I do this, I have to do it for a year. I have to give it time because, and it was the same thing I did with my flying lessons. I gave them $500 and I said, do not let me quit before this money is out, because the fear of speaking on a mic live in front of people could almost paralyze me.
Yes.
Well, wait, I want to be edited out. What if I say the wrong word, which I say all the time? In my regular life, I knew I was also going to do it in my radio
and you get
life.
your thoughts all jumbled up, and then you don't make sense. And
or you say something that really wasn't the way I meant it. Because I think about a fight with a family member or a spouse or something, and you say something, and then they hold you to that exact way you've said that.
Yes.
And you're like, that's not the way I meant it. But that's the way you said
right.
it. And now you're like held to this thing of like, I'm an idiot.
Right.
Don't listen to everything I say so literally. What's wrong with you? That's your fault. It's not my fault.
Yes.
But then you go back to, okay, I'm going to do that live.
Yeah.
And then and after the third, there were a couple of weeks where it's like, am I doing this right? Is this landing? I'm trying to be funny. Is it funny?
Yeah.
Am I, and then in the fear of not having, it's so different because we don't have, we're not looking at our listeners in the eye to see if we're catching with them or not.
Right.
Is this landing? Are you interested? So
Right.
you could quit immediately. Right. And I knew if I was doing it, I would have to do it for a year, because then I would iron out all that. I still get a little nervous, but I iron out that. I'm going to vomit nervous.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And to me, I was like, yeah, I'll do this, but I didn't know.
So it's funny we came from two different places.
Well, so that's why I was just saying, that's why I think some things like other than pregnancy and flying and things like that. I mean, yes, you do have to commit to those things, but you just like exploring, like even this, I was told that, I need to be more clear and concise when I talk, and I jumble my words, and especially when I get nervous, I jumble my words, and it's just blah, 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 blah.
And sometimes it's the brain going faster than the connection to the voice out.
Yes.
My brain goes at 100. If you could see
Yes.
how fast my brain
Yes.
processes, my speech pattern would make sense to you.
Yes.
You'd be like, she's doing fantastic. Look at that car going 700 miles an hour, and she was only talking at 55.
Right. It's
Good
like
for
when
her.
you listen to an Audible and you've got it up on like 1.8, and it only comes out of my mouth at like 1.1.
Or the commercials at the end that do the legal disclaimer.
Yeah.
And sudden uncontrollable diarrhea.
And in certain cases, death.
Suicidal ideations. You're like, what are they saying? What? That's my brain.
Yes.
So the fact that I'm translating it
Yes.
to you at the speed,
Yes.
good job.
Yes. I appreciate you.
I'm doing fantastic. Don't let anyone tell you different. Back to our show.
Well, but so I would get nervous and I get tongue-tied, and then I feel like I over-talk it or over-explain it. And I've had multiple people tell me that you just do this, do that, do that. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm the last person that should be on a microphone, like from what people have told me that I shouldn't. Like, no, I don't want to do a podcast, and I don't want to be on an interview, and now I'm going to do radio. We have to do it live, and like, oh, that doesn't work with my brain.
But here we are.
Yes. And I'm all in, and I'm committed. But it's like, I guess I come from a place of like, I'll put my toe in the water. It's kind of like painting. Like, I like the idea of painting. My mom is a great painter. My niece and my sister all are great painters. And I'm like, I got to have some kind of artistic talent somewhere in there.
You do, in your decorating sense and how you can visually put things together. So I think you just have to actually do it.
I think photography is one. I mean, I like literally on paper. Like a space, yes, I feel confident in myself enough to say.
But even in your photographs, you know what to eliminate and what to include
Yes.
to make a very visually appealing photograph.
I just can't do that with a paintbrush.
Hmm.
So instead of like going all in.
Yet.
Yes.
Because you haven't done it with a paintbrush
Yes.
at all.
Actually, I made some clouds the other day that I thought was pretty impressive, and I was like, I like that, doing that. But by the time I'm like, okay, I'm going to paint today, and by the time I go set up all of my stuff, and I'm like, I really want to do it. But
Is that fear kicking in?
I think it's the pressure that I put on myself. It's the pressure to perform instead of being like when we went to the paint bar night with Kayla. You're just over there like, oh, just your wrist is all flowy, and I'm gonna mix this and mix that, and I'm like, I'm gripping my paintbrush so tight, and like, I don't know what to do. So I have a hard time making that connection of just being free and not committed to what the outcome is going to be. Like, I want to make it perfect right away. And so I don't trust myself in that. And I think that probably, so I think that's why it comes to, I'll dip my toe in the water.
If you saw the first palm tree I made as an adult, you'd be like, what is that? And I would tell you, I don't know. I did it with a knife because I thought I wanted to do acrylic knife painting, but I was using thin acrylics with a knife, which was wrong. And I liked painting. Every kid likes painting.
Yes.
Right? Or coloring, or that exists within us before the fear and the
Before
criticism.
we're tainted by people.
Before we're tainted by people, right? Absolutely. So it always exists in us. I watched Bob Ross for Christmas. I got a Bob Ross. I got the set. The Van Dyke Brown.
Oh, yes.
And I got paints and I got one canvas. And my mother, a clean freak, made me watch a black and white television that was in the kitchen from the back hall so I wouldn't drop any paint in our house, which I totally get now as an adult. You don't want a kid just painting in your house with non-washable paints. Right. You ruin your furniture. So she had a good point. This was the best she could do. So I was in the back hall I have to like put my head around a corner to see what he's doing in black and white, on a color painting and reproduce it in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because that's what his show was. And so
and you can't pause it. That's live.
That's live. You cannot pause it. So I'm sticking my head
if
around
he comes
the corner.
on at 10, you're not going to catch him at 10:45.
So I do it, and it comes out, other than a rock. We were putting a happy rock, and I didn't like my rock at the end of the painting, and I almost wanted to paint over it, but I was like, no, the painting has a rock because Bob said it had a rock. Right. Now I know as an adult, but if you don't like the rock, just paint over the rock. It's
right.
We can fix this. This is totally fixable.
Right.
But I showed my mother, and she couldn't believe I made it. I'm like, what do you think I've been doing in the back hall? Right. And then I wanted to do more paintings because Bob Ross is on next Saturday, and she was like, how many of these are we going to have? So I never painted again.
Really?
Up until I was 38.
Wow.
And then I said to myself one day, it was in Michael's, and
I'm gonna paint
50% of, and I'm painting, and I am not painting, and I painted canvases and physically threw them away, or would paint them and then paint over them.
Why would you throw them away? Because you didn't like it?
Oh yeah, because they were terrible.
Oh, well.
They weren't, And then when I started painting some abstracts, which they couldn't be right or wrong, and then I could get into the flow of color and composition and all of that, and then I got better.
See, I'm such a detail person. When they got me paints for Christmas, I was like, I'm going to start with an abstract. I'm going to force myself to be like, I'm not going to go. And he actually got it's a canvas paint by number thing, and it's of Greece, like Santorini, like all the white, the dome. And I was like, oh boy. Then you start looking at it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's one touch of peach, like right there that's going to make my eyes go cross. And I was like, I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah.
So then I'd paint, and I was like, okay, well, what am I going to paint? So I started looking up, like, okay, this looks easy. I'll do that. And then I didn't want to watch the video because I didn't want to see how she did it. I can see the lines. You know, if you look at something and you break it down into lines.
Yeah, like these are circles, these are squares, these are angles.
This line is straight until here, and then it kind of turns, or, just. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start with that. I did it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is horrible.
Well, you can't just do it once and be good at something. You have to practice all the time, and then you
I
can paint
actually
over that
did a-
painting. Just paint it. All
I did a girl. I did a girl with a knife, the acrylic. She has like it's like a black and white picture, but she's standing in front of like this black rock wall. It's dark. It's rainy, and you can see kind of the shadows of the rock wall. And there's a waterfall, and the rain is like the reflecting on the ground. And she has her little red dress and an umbrella, or she's a red dress and a red umbrella, and her hair's kind of blowing. And I'm like, that one came out okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, now that I think I have a little more experience, I could go back and try it again. But for whatever reason, I have a hard time allowing myself just to be free.
Well, yeah, my mood definitely impacts my emotional state. Definitely impacts what I'm putting into it. But I didn't realize that. Like, if I was in a bad mood, sometimes I would feel better after painting. And
That's a good idea.
one of the things, so I went to one of those paint classes they had here in Nashua, and you go, and because I was starting to do them regularly, because I'm like, oh, you're around a bunch of people, you do it with a friend or something, it's a night out.
Yeah.
So I was doing it, but I was very sad that day, and I almost canceled because I was almost too sad to go. And then so I painted the painting, and then what do you do with all these paintings? So I start giving them to people. Like, one of my tenants, we had just renovated her apartment. She was an elderly lady. And so she was like, oh, I don't like all these old pictures now that I have this new carpet and this new paint. I want different things. So I brought her the painting.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was the two people walking under an umbrella with all the bright leaf color behind it.
yes.
Everyone's seen it
And
everywhere.
the trees,
Yes.
like the line of the
So
trees. I think I have that somewhere.
Yeah, so that's the painting we painted at the thing. But the woman said, when I came one time, the painting was turned around. And I was like, oh, you don't like it? And in my head, I was like, it's colorful. And she was like, it's so sad.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, really? Doesn't it look like a sunset kind of? And she's like, it hurts my heart. I don't know what you were feeling when you painted it, but I can't even look at it. It makes me so sad. And I was like, let me throw it away. I threw it away. I threw it in
Wow.
the dumpster because I'm like, no one needs to be this sad. If I'm making this woman at the tail end of her life, renovating her apartment,
But
giving her
that's
sad
actually-
paintings.
That's actually pretty fascinating. It actually goes back to what we were talking about this morning.
You bring who you are.
Yeah, you bring who you are, and we don't realize the energy that is the residue.
Yeah. And do
We always leave a residue, or
And when I was asking, are we
Imprint.
coming where we are authentically? If you go back to the beginning part of this about what you desire, are you always putting your desires on hold? Do you have things you truly want for yourself that you don't do?
right, and desires not your career.
Maybe it was your career.
Well, it could be.
Maybe, but I know people don't sit on their deathbed wishing they could work more. So, what do you does? And I think sometimes, and we can talk about this during the second hour, but I'm probably 2 years away from being diabetic. My blood sugar keeps going up, and I'm been trying to lose weight. I've been quote unquote eating healthy. Scale's not moving, so I bought a continuous glucose monitor.
Yes, you should share about that.
Yeah,
'cause it
we'll
is
share about that.
It's fascinating, and it
is
talks about
so fascinating.
small shifts.
Yes. But one of the things I notice is I take pleasure in food.
Yes,
actually-
me too.
Life doesn't always give us rainbows. But I know I can make a cookie or a salad or eggplant parm. I can make something and soothe or satisfy myself emotionally.
Yes, yes.
And having to watch what my blood sugar is doing every time I eat, because it's active 24 hours a day. So you can see
Yes.
what's happening with your eating. And now I realize to what keeps my blood sugar in the right range is so much less food than I eat because I'm eating because it tastes good.
Yeah.
Or I'm eating because I'm bored. Or I'm eating
I always say it's mouth hungry.
mouth hungry.
Like my
Absolutely.
belly, I'm full. Like I'm not hungry anymore, but it tastes so good, and like I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the flavors, and I'm like it's like a reward.
And it is a desire. Like,
Yes.
you know what? And maybe I've trained myself because I grew up on microwave and fast food and didn't have that desire. And growing up, I was almost afraid of food because I was afraid of flesh. I was afraid of being fat.
Yeah.
You know, my grandmother used to call me, my nickname was Pancakes, meaning my ass looked like two round pancakes. And you know, I remember my cousin and I sitting, and then they would go to Costco and buy 24 packs of Snickers.
Jeez.
So this was like some kind of weird, you know, when you look back and it's like, well, they're cheaper at Costco, so we're going to buy 50 of them.
Right.
And then don't eat them.
Right.
And then what do I do with all these Snickers that you're not eating? And then when you eat them, we call you fat names.
Right.
It is such a, what is that? Almost like when someone, you're in a bad relationship and they're like, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you. You know, with that that cyclical, you know, push you away to want you back.
I'm trying to think of the word.
I'm trying to think of the word too, but I always think of
psychotic, but no.
It's not sociopath. No.
Yes.
But I know as a teenager, I remember that dynamic of, well, when I wanted to date you, you didn't want to date me, and then when I found someone else, you wanted to get together.
Right.
That tug in the tango.
Yeah.
It's almost like the tango.
Yes.
That push and pull.
Yes.
Where I wanted what I wanted.
Yes.
I didn't want what I didn't want.
I'm still like that.
I'm still like that. I want what I want.
Or one time we
I
went
want cookies. I'm getting cookies. I'll tell you that right now. And an apple. This is what I found fascinating about that continuous glucose monitor. A Honeycrisp apple is worse on my blood sugar than a chocolate chip cookie because I've eaten both this week. And I think maybe it's because I'm eating a cookie after food, so there's already something in my stomach. And I drove here not eating anything, having just an apple, and my blood sugar went through the roof.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And here you are thinking, well, that's healthy for me.
Right.
Because it is. It has antioxidants and stuff. But
And it's fiber.
and it's fiber, but not on an empty stomach for
Right.
me. But it's so cool. This is such a cool thing. I'll keep you updated on the
So
final
you don't
things.
have to have everybody, you don't have to have a prescription for it.
You do not have to have a prescription for it. It used to only be available to people with diabetes. Now they've made it available to anybody. I got, there's different price points. You can get one that has live online nutrition coaching and exercise coaches, which is significantly higher.
Now, is it comfortable to wear?
I don't even remember that it's on. It's attached to the back of your arm through... I'm wearing the wrong shirt to show it today. I'll take a picture of it and put it on our Instagram. It's a little tiny round bulb that sticks out from the back of your arm, and it's what it does is you put it in with a small needle. You don't even feel it. It goes in and injects a wire sensor underneath your skin, and then after 15 days, the battery will die. You pull it off, and then you add a new one. So I was doing it because I was sick of everyone telling me how to lose weight when none of the things were working.
Right.
I went to a doctor and went directly onto an all-protein diet. I lost 11 pounds the first week at 800 calories. They have you on 800 protein calories.
Wow.
So basically for half of the day, you're just drinking pickle juice to keep your sodium up.
Yeah.
It was a paid-for diet. I spent well over $1,000 on it. I got kidney stones on it after 5 weeks because it was all protein and nothing else. And the first week, I lost what seemed like great weight, and then the second week I gained 2 pounds back. The next week I gained 2 pounds back. The next week I gained 2 pounds back, and the next week I gained 2 pounds back and got kidney stones.
You're creating such a deficit, and your body doesn't know what it's doing, and what we're realizing.
How could you possibly gain weight on 1,100 calories?
Well, but
something else is broken.
But what we're learning is even the trainer told you something very different about aerobic. And versus lifting your weights and how you burn. And we're all so individual, and we get caught up in these diets and all of these things. Like, that's such a great thing, that glucose monitor. Like, I know that my A1C was a little bit high. My glucose, I think my glucose was, I don't remember my exact number, but it was a little bit high on stuff. But I also didn't really fast. I mean, I had cream in my coffee when I did it, I was like, I forgot. Oh, well, it's not a big deal.
Everyone's blood sugar, for the most part, unless you're diabetic, everyone's blood sugar is low when you're fasted.
But it's a great tool to learn what and how your body processes foods.
And exercise.
And you can curtail your own eating habits towards that. It's not like you have to go all Atkins or all protein or...
And it's in real time. So
Yeah.
I could tell within 15 minutes that my body was reacting negatively to the apple. I knew in 15 minutes. So what it does is when you spike that high, it says, why don't you move around? Can you walk for 10 minutes? And I couldn't walk for 10 minutes because I was in the car and then coming to a radio show. But during the week, as I was spiking, I would go then and move for 10 minutes. I would go take a walk. I would go up and down my driveway, or I would run down on the treadmill. And that would change the peaking of the glucose, because muscle eats glucose.
How much did you see a drop after those 10 minutes?
Like 20 points.
Yeah, that's really good.
So if you wanted to game it all together, you could, and I wasn't working out, trying to sweat, work out, burn calories.
Right.
I was just trying to move my body, because I was trying also not to sweat, because I sweat in the morning.
Right.
I showered now,
Why
and
do
I've
I
got my
wanna
head. I do not want to sweat again now. But I moved.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, and I was exercising fasted, which was putting me almost too low blood sugar. So then anything I ate after that spiked, no matter what I was eating. Eggs, protein, whatever, I was still spiking. I was going more than 50 points in one direction.
Wow.
And so then, okay, but my whole life I've worked out fasted, because that's how you burn calories. But I think I was always trying to lose weight, mostly thin. I was trying to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, I never let myself get more than 10 or 12 pounds. I would just...
But back then, were you 10 pounds, the 10 pounds that you wanted to lose?
It was because my pants didn't fit.
Right. But are you at your ideal body weight? And so when
Yes.
you're at your ideal body weight, it's very hard to lose after that, because it wants to, your body naturally wants to be
Yes.
a certain weight.
So that's what I found with running, is I could run and eat and maintain my ideal body weight, which is why I became a runner. And then I kept running because mentally it was unbelievably good for my mental health.
Wow.
Unbelievably good for my mental health. All my anxiety went away. I couldn't become anxious because I had tired myself out so much. Like, all that energy that just bounces around actually was exerted. So then I had this, it was almost like I meditated for an hour, because I'm still not a great meditator, but there's such a thing as walking meditation, where you're moving and then you're linking your breath to your movement, which is what yoga is. So running, to me, I had to breathe in a very specific cadence so that I wouldn't hyperventilate and I could continue running.
It's rhythmic. So anything
Very
that you do
rhythmic.
is like repetition and rhythmic. And that's even gardening. Sometimes I'll go out and I'm knowing that if I have that anxious and that anxiety, I'll just start, like, I'm cleaning it up. I'm taking care of the plants. So I'm nurturing, and it requires me to be softer.
Well, also, and you're moving energy, pulling weeds, getting rid of that thing that doesn't belong. Like, there's a lot of very tangible, satisfying things in gardening.
Yes. And so it doesn't have to be, but I think as a society on a whole, we don't move enough.
Oh,
and somebody's like, "What are you talking about?" I move all day. Well, I used to work in a lab, and I would wear my Fitbit, and I would work from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. and consistently every day. I was at like 7,000 steps in that period of time. I'm almost at 10,000 steps. And so I'm like, I move all the time. No, it's a different kind of moving. You're moving in that different energy. Even if you just go for a stroll, just for a walk, it doesn't have to be for
Calorie burning.
Yes, calorie burning. As long as you're doing it for movement, you are moving that energy out of your body.
And you're contracting your muscles, which eats glucose. But
Yes.
you are listening to Lisa and Robyn on the mic on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM, and you can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live. We're going to the top of the hour. Stay tuned for another hour. We'll see you in a minute.